In order to finish the exterior off, there were still a couple of pieces that still need to be primed and painted. So I firstly applied a nice coat of primer and then applied a couple different coats of paint. While I'm looking at the application of this coat of primer, I am very surprised that I did not spill any paint or primer whatsoever. Nevertheless, time to move on. I'm going to be applying some colors on the exhaust, also on some of these grills, and of course a couple other various parts and pieces. The top of the engine is slightly visible and it needed to be painted in a couple different colors, and the center section needed some carbon fiber decals. So I carefully applied the carbon fiber decals, formed them, and then clear coated them with a nice glossy finish. If you've watched the unboxing of this kit, you might have noticed that the clear parts are not the same as in normal kits. In this case, they are vacuformed plastic. Now these still need to be cut to the correct shape, they just have a bit of form to them, so I need to make a masking template in order to get that outline correct. I did that with a bit of masking tape and then carefully traced it out with a marker. That template, once outlined, was removed from the body and transferred to that clear vacuformed piece before cutting it out. I tried to be as precise as I could with the cut, but I didn't really want to overshoot it, so I did it a bit safe and then had to sand some of the edges to refine it and fit it perfectly. It took me about 15 minutes to get the fit as perfect as I could get it, and I could then move on to the next stage, which was masking off the inside of the window and then using the photo edge template that was supplied in the kit to mark out where the black edge needs to be. Now this template isn't really as precise as it should be. The top and sides are pretty much okay, though the bottom was a bit low, so that needed to be placed a bit higher up on the window to make that edge on the bottom a lot bigger. Once that was perfected, I cut it out carefully along that edge and started to paint it black. A couple small pieces on the engine also needed to be painted black, so while I still had the black on the brush anyway, I did that as well. On the back around the taillights there is a big piece that needed to be silver. I wasn't really too sure if I'd like it in silver or in chrome, so I tried the chrome. It has a nice contrast to all the carbon fiber, and in the end I stuck to it. So I just took out some bare metal foil, put it in place, cut it around some of the panel lines carefully, and then made sure it fit up nicely. I'm not going to go into detail on the bare metal foil application, as I have done a couple of videos in the past. If you want to check those out, be sure to head over to my channel. The how-to section has a couple videos on bare metal foil. In that center piece there is a nice split which needs to be filled with clear paint. In my case, I decided to do it with clear red from Tamiya to copy the actual taillight as best as I could. I then also painted the other taillights, which needs to be glued onto this piece later with the same clear red in multiple layers. To smoothen out the headlight lenses, I decided to add a layer of clear to that as well, just gloss clear from Tamiya, just to even it out and make it a bit more clear than it is. It's a bit foggy from the casting, and with the clear layer on top it makes it a lot better to look through. While the paint was drying on the lenses, I could move on to some assembly. I applied some photo etch here and there and also some other parts for the body as well. These were all glued together with Bob Smith Industries Super Gold Plus. The paint on the taillights had a couple of hours to dry, so these were dry enough to be installed as well. Before the top of the engine could be glued into the body, I needed to glue on a couple of photo etch pieces to add some details and also some Bugatti logos. On the rear there was also a metal transfer sticker needed for the Bugatti logos that got stuck in place, and the protective backing got pulled off as well. The multiple piece exhaust tip was glued together and then glued in place. With the dashboard now slid in place, I decided to go to the back of the car. There are some uprights for the spoiler, which you can use, but you can also decide to leave it in the down position. Now I'm not too sure which of these I will be using, so I didn't glue them in, took them out, and we'll decide that at a later date. The front lights were also glued in place. The lenses had enough time to cure, so those were also put in as well. All of the lenses are now in place, so there's just a couple pieces left that need to be glued onto the body. Firstly, I'm going to start with the windshield, then do the side windows, move on to the mirrors, and also the door handles before calling this body done for now. Overall, everything went together nicely. All the parts fit up perfectly fine without any major adjustments needed. The only part that was a bit nerve-wracking were the windows on the front and side, of course. These need to be cut out carefully and precisely, and you only have one shot, so you don't want to ruin that. Luckily, it worked out in the end, and everything is looking good. Time to move on to the chassis with a lot more carbon fiber, some wheels that need to be painted in multiple colors. while I'm still debating on adding a silver edge or just going gloss black. We'll see, but all those parts of course also need to be finished before we can slap it together with the main interior tub and finish it off entirely.